Hi guys, Brexit Hardman Steve Baker has recently come out calling for his boss Boris Johnson to resign. Now Baker has tried to present himself as an honourable politician who puts the national interest above that of the Conservative Party. On Thursday he spoke to Andrew Marr of LBC, where he suggested that it was wrong of Boris Johnson to call a general election at this moment. Why is Steve doing this? Well, it isn't anything about being honourable. I'll explain exactly why I believe he's doing it in just a moment. But first, let's hear what he had to say.
The only reason to call a general election for the autumn is to try and circumvent an inconvenient report. Well, what a thing to put the nation through. If the right thing to do is to let the report, the honourable thing to do is to let the report come out, see what it says, and if it says he's knowingly misled the House, to go. And it's the right thing to do. If I may, the other point you made was perhaps he wants to take advantage of the chaos of a Labour leadership crisis.
Exactly.
But that wouldn't be in the national interest either. Would
that be seen as opportunistic, do you think?
Well, I think as politicians, we all have to say what we will seize opportunities where we find them. We're campaigning. We're trying to serve the public in the way we think best, and it's like war minus the shooting. But there's some opportunities one ought not to take in our uncodified system. And one of those is calling a general election when the opposition party is leaderless. I'm afraid I think that's not cricket.
That's not cricket. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Steve seems quite honourable, the idea that, it's not a good idea to call a general election when there's a problem with the opposition parties. They're looking at I don't think Keir Starmer is under a lot of pressure to be replaced, but maybe some people within the Conservative Party want to push that narrative to convince the public that there is disunity within the Labour Party, and Keir Starmer is not really in charge. But that's not what Steve Baker is talking about. Steve Baker is trying to present himself as, I'm an honourable guy. I don't think the Prime Minister should be doing this. Why does Steve Baker want Boris Johnson out? Well, this could be the reason. Steve is the MP for Wigan. Now, if we look at Wigan's the vote in Wigan in the 2015 general election, you can see that Steve topped the poll, 26,444, with a majority of 14,856. Now, that was in 2015. In 2017, his majority dropped to 6,578. And in 2019, his majority dropped to 4,214. Now, that's interesting because in 2019, many Tories won massive majorities because, well, of getting Brexit done. Boris Johnson get Brexit done. It delivered him an 80-seat majority. And for Steve Baker, you would imagine his share of the vote would increase, not decrease in 2019. So obviously, Steve Baker is concerned. We've seen majorities bigger than this being flipped in by-elections, and of course by-elections and general elections are different, but Steve Baker wants Boris Johnson out, in my opinion, because Boris Johnson is a problem for the Conservative Party and MPs. Steve would prefer to have somebody else in place, anyone probably, instead of Boris Johnson, so it would actually help Steve Baker. Not that Steve Baker actually cares about the nation. He's a Brexiteer. He's a member of the ERG. He's happy to see the country burn. He doesn't care about the national interest. He cares about his own interest, and he wants to hold on to his seat. And Boris Johnson is a problem for him. Replace Boris Johnson with somebody else, and there's a chance that he would hold on to his seat. This is why he's on for the last number of months about how Boris Johnson is undermining democracy and Boris Johnson is undermining Parliament. Steve Baker doesn't care about that. Steve Baker cares about holding on to his seat. And considering the majority he won in 2019, Steve Baker is probably very concerned. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.